No, the Celtics are not going to trade Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. Plus, why the numbers show this Wednesday's game against Toronto is a major test of the Celtics defense. I'm talking about it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
I'm so hyped right now. Anything's possible. Oh, my mama. Oh, my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Rain and Jay's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global, but it got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, thank you for making the Locked On Celtics podcast part of your daily routine and your first listen every day, Monday through Friday. Remember, Locked On Celtics is free, always has been, and will be free, available on all platforms, including YouTube. Please watch the show on YouTube. And every episode is available on LockedOnCeltics.com. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Boston Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, and I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, which you can get now wherever books are sold online. Today's show is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Here's how today's show is going to go. The third segment, I'm going to save for the defensive numbers that I talked about in the open. It's a big piece that I have publishing on Boston Sports Journal in the morning, looking at the Celtics turnaround, first 5 games, second 5 games, what the numbers show, and why this Wednesday's game against the Toronto Raptors is actually a major, major test of what the Celtics defense has become. So that's coming up in the third segment. Segment number 2, a Jaylen Brown update, a practice update on his hamstring, and a little bit more about why I think this is actually a smart move for Jaylen Brown and by Jaylen Brown. But let's start with something that's not smart regarding Jaylen Brown, and that's this report about Ben Simmons and the Celtics asking about a Ben Simmons trade. So let's just set the scene here and what's real and what's not. The report out of the Athletic, Shams Charania, that the Celtics have called asking about Ben Simmons, something about they've engaged in talks and that Jaylen Brown is who the Sixers would want in exchange for Ben Simmons. So here we have a very classic scenario. The Celtics or any NBA team looks at the Philadelphia 76ers, says, okay, you've got a guy that's good. We would like to maybe trade for him. How can we make this happen? What can we do to make this work? And Philly says, oh yeah, sure, no problem. We can make this work. Ben Simmons, we can get you Ben Simmons, no problem. Just Jaylen Brown, boom, boom. Numbers work. Let's do it. Done. To which the response should be maniacal laughter and a hang up, because there is no way in hell the Boston Celtics are trading Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, especially on this Celtics team where shooting is at a premium. Having one more guy that you can't count on to even take a three-pointer, never mind make a three-pointer. And yeah, his defense, sure, top-notch defense. Well, the Celtics already can get top-notch defense, maybe not from a guy quite as tall, but you can get top-notch defense from Marcus Smart and pay him less money and have him be much less infuriating. Sorry, I know some of you think Marcus Smart is infuriating. Wait till you get Ben Simmons on this team. I am not interested. Jaylen Brown is the far better player at this point, especially considering where Simmons is with the franchise, how much he is looking to get out of there and be a disruption and all that. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that element on the Celtics. That's no team. This is why they haven't traded Ben Simmons yet, because they're sitting there saying, yeah, we want Jaylen Brown or that level player. Well, sorry, Daryl Morey, you're just not going to get that. You're not going to get that. Brad Stevens doing his due diligence, although I don't know how the Celtics could even pull off a trade for Simmons if they were to come up with some other package besides Jaylen Brown, and they were to say, hey, we've got this guy and we've got that guy, and maybe it's Al Horford to help the money match, which would be hilarious to see Philly take back Al Horford and then not know how to use him anymore like they did the last time. But it would have to involve Al Horford. It would have to involve, they'd probably say Al Horford and all of the picks or a bunch of the picks and, maybe a young guy. You like what you see from Romeo, you like what you see from Nesmith, we can work that out. But even so, I wouldn't want to get rid of Al Horford considering everything that the Celtics have gone through right now. The numbers match, the money matches, but look at the way Al has already impacted the Celtics and how he's impacted the locker room. That all goes away with Ben Simmons. You're not going to get that same level of locker room impact. You're not going to get that veteran guy. I think Al Horford is super important. So I think that option is kind of out the window. Although who knows? Brad might say, look, we love Al Horford too, but I don't know how much longer he's going to stick around, which is fair. He's under contract for one more year. There's that weird guarantee of $14 million. And I don't know how that situation is going to play out either, but that's not something that I don't think that's not nothing that Philly wants. Daryl Morey has been steadfast in his position. They want an all-star level return. Good luck. You're not going to get an all-star level return. So whatever game of chicken's being played over there, it's not going to end like this. The Celtics, if they want Ben Simmons, going to have to go through a third team somehow, but that's not going to work. And certainly no Ben Simmons for Jaylen Brown. That is, forget it, done. I don't want to hear anything else about it. And I'm not going to say anything else about it. How's that? We're going to leave it at that. But how about Jaylen Brown right now in his hamstring? That is, we got an update here, and that's going to come up next. First, I got to tell you about Truebill. Every one of us has signed up for a free trial. We have to put your credit card in, and then all of a sudden it's like, oops, oh man, my card just got billed. That just happened to me. Truebill is a new app that helps identify and stop paying for subscription that you don't need, you don't want, or that you simply forgot about. On average, people actually save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. That's how they do it. They're doing it like this on purpose, and Truebill makes it incredibly simple to link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Your Truebill concierge is going to be there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to do this. I just had to go through getting a refund for a subscription that renewed, and I caught hundreds of dollars, and that was a pain, and you just don't want that. You have a user here like Matthew B. Saved $660 a year for his DirecTV bill, save $120 on his SiriusXM bill, $840 a year on car insurance. That's all through Truebill. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It can save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Maybe you could take a couple bucks for that you save there through Truebill and pop it in at Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. If you have not checked it out yet, you're missing out because you are going to love this app. It has the best NBA daily fantasy sports prop game on the market. So they offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator. And they offer all the superstar players plus the bench players. So if you're into Aaron Nesmith, you want to get some props onto him, then they can offer you that as well. You can get your first deposit matched with the promo code NBA, a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times an entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. You can even mix and match. So you can get the over on Jason Tatum combined with the under on Mac Jones, all on the same entry. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. Do not hesitate. PrizePicks.com, promo code NBA. Go to your App Store, download today. PrizePicks is fantasy made easy. You will love it. I want to thank you once again for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making your second listen Locked On NBA, which I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. So tomorrow's podcast, Locked On NBA, will be me and Jake, as well as me and Jake, me doing this show. 2 podcasts. I'll do 2 podcasts tonight for you guys if you listen to Locked On NBA after you listen to this one. Jaylen Brown strained his right hamstring. And so the official update is from Ime Udoka. Here's the quote. He's going to be a week or 2. He'll be assessed. The timeline is looking like a week or 2 right now. It's a hamstring strain. We'll know more in a week or 2, but right now he's out for a week or 2. That's the broad timeline. So I guess he's out for a week or 2. He said it 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the span of 2 sentences. So he's out for a week or 2, which I guess, and people ask me like, well, what's that timeline? When does it start? I suppose the clock starts ticking from the day they test it, or maybe it goes back to the Miami game, which would make. I see. Here's the thing: it doesn't go back to the Miami game. He missed the Dallas game, and now they're saying it's a week or 2. A week would be the 11th, but he also referenced him being out for the next few games. So my guess is missing Toronto Wednesday night, missing Milwaukee Friday night, missing the back-to-back in Cleveland. The question is, does he travel to Cleveland? Because they play Cleveland on the road on Saturday and again on Monday, that home-and-home scenario there. So if he travels to Cleveland, then we're looking at the week or so, and maybe he plays on Monday. If he doesn't, then we're probably looking at, does he make the trip to Atlanta? Does he just stay home and make the target date the 19th against the LA Lakers, who are in town, Friday the 19th? They have a back-to-back there. Lakers on Friday, Oklahoma City Thunder on Saturday. And that begins a 4-game home stretch, which is going to be a really important time for the Celtics here. And this is an important trip, a stretch here for the Celtics as well. Toronto, who's been playing somewhat well, but a game over 500. Milwaukee, who has been struggling. Cleveland, who is not really great, but they've got Evan Mobley, and they're just playing. They're actually playing extraordinarily well. The Hawks, who are playing okay, but not as great as people thought they would. So this is an important stretch for the Celtics to maybe take advantage of some spots there in the schedule that are softer than you might think, but also Cleveland we thought was going to be a gimme, and it's not necessarily a gimme. So, and as has been noted by many people, without Jaylen Brown, the Celtics are about 16 points. They're being outscored by 16 points or so without Jaylen Brown on the floor. So not having Jaylen is going to be obviously problematic. And the longer it goes, the more problematic it becomes, because you have like that Dallas where, they lost by a buzzer beater. They didn't have Jaylen Brown. You can rally without a guy. Jaylen's so important, but if going in, hey, let's rally, we got to make up for it, then there's there's a pump up factor, right? There sometimes a good player goes down and the rest of the team's like, all right, here we go. We're going to pick him up. We're really going to be locked in. And then you don't know how long he's going to be out. And then you find out, like Al Horford, for example, found out. I'm recording this show Monday into Tuesday. It's midnight. And earlier on Monday, Al Horford was told, like, okay, so Jaylen's going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks. And it hit him like, like he didn't realize. So it was a little bit deflating. And he said, I didn't know what the case was going to be. So there's like a factor. And luckily for the Celtics, they have a couple days off. So they had the practice on Monday, which didn't seem to be a full practice. Tuesday is a full practice that these guys are going to go through. And they'll go through the game plan and they'll prepare. But there's still that like, all right, let's try to do it without Jaylen. And there's a little bit of you got to try to overcome that kind of slump shoulder factor. Because the Celtics do have the personnel. We haven't heard anything about Romeo Langford. He was sick for the Dallas game. I'm assuming that, a lot of these guys who were out with the non-COVID illness before were back within a game or two. So I don't know how long this is going to last for Romeo. There are players who can step up. Romeo can step up. Nesmith can step up. He's got to bounce back from that Dallas game. This is a big opportunity for Nesmith to step up. Obviously, Josh Richardson can prove a little bit more of, hey, let's a little more opportunity. Let's give me my chance. I can step up in Jaylen's place. Somebody's going to have to do it. But here's one point I want to make about Jaylen. This is the quote that really stuck out to me, where Udoka was asked to follow up, and he said, I mentioned the history. He's had it a few times. He knows his body pretty well, and he said it didn't feel terrible, but he did feel it. Obviously, the tightness kept him out of the rest of the Miami game and Dallas, so it was something he had to get looked at. The strain showed a week or two, and he knew something. He was being overly cautious himself because of his past history. I really need to, because I've mentioned this before about Jaylen and other guys, and it came with the COVID not feeling right. And this goes to the heart of the question that I asked him about, will you reduce your role if you're not feeling well? This is what I'm talking about, this exact thing. He felt a pull, a little something that maybe in the past he would have tried to play through. Come on out, ride the bike, massage it, feels a little tight, let me try it out, put a wrap on it or something. Instead, because of his history, he's like, okay, I felt this before. The last time I felt this, it was a strain, and I need to rest it. Like Udoka said, he knows his body pretty well. And he knew something. He was being overly cautious himself because of his past history. To me, that's like growth. That's maturity. That's Jaylen Brown understanding the bigger picture. And I want to applaud him for understanding the bigger picture, realizing that, look, I might have to miss a few games now, but it's much more important for me to be healthy and back for the entire, the rest of the schedule, rather than try to gut it through here and either A, not be right, or B, have to still miss games down the road. Because if you try to force your way through it, and I'm going to really grind through it, you get this warrior mentality, and we all love the warrior mentality. No matter what, I'm going to fight through it. No matter what, you're going to chop my legs off for me not to play. Well, you know what? Sometimes that's not going to be the best approach. Sometimes you need to be like, you know what? I'm not 100%. I'm actually kind of limited, and me being out there actually hurts the team. So I'd rather take a game or two off to get myself right, make sure that I can be 100%, and give these. You got to trust your teammates. You got to trust your teammates to step up. You say, hey, look, man, I got Aaron Nesmith on this team. I got Romeo Langford on this team. Like, these guys can step in for 30 minutes, 15 minutes apiece, and Jason can step up, and Marcus Smart can step up, and Horford and Rob, and everyone else can try to pick up a little bit of the slack. So we'll be fine. It's a long season. Not having to get it in his head to be stubborn and have to be like, no, I'm not going to, sit out. I'm not going, none of that. Like, I actually appreciate and applaud the maturity to understand his history, understand that this has been a problem before, and step up, say something, do the right thing, because playing in this game in November is not quite as important as being ready in March and April and hopefully May. You know, like that's definitely the bigger priority. So shout out to Jaylen Brown for making the mature decision when it comes to an injury or a potential injury and all of that. So they still could have used him in the Toronto game, but the defensive numbers have trended towards this game being a really important one. Why the Toronto matchup specifically will challenge the Celtics and their defensive improvements. That is coming up next. First, I have got to tell you about Rock Auto, which is the only place to go for anything that you need for your car, truck, SUV, RV, whatever. If you're driving it, they've got it for you at rockauto.com. And it can be as simple as the wipers, which I need to replace my wipers. So I'm going to go to rockauto.com one of these days when I stop procrastinating and get new wipers for my car, especially now. Winter's coming soon and you've got that low setting sun and you want to make sure that you can get all of that stuff off your windshield so you can actually see, get past that glare. So head on over to rockauto.com. If you need something very complicated for an engine, and if you know what that is, then great. You can go and check it out at rockauto.com. I've talked to people who have saved hundreds of dollars. There are, you're going to save 30 to 50 to even 100% depending on where you get your parts. So the chain store is not going to be able to compare. They don't have the shelf space. They don't have the means. They just cannot compete with rockauto.com. And here's what you got to do. When you go to rockauto.com, plug in your car's information, you're going to end up buying something. Write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box when you check out? That's the only way they know we sent you. So please write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? That's what I'm going to do when I buy my wipers. You should do it too. And it's an amazing selection. Reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Thank you for making the Locked On Celtics podcast your first listen every day. Make the second listen the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. You've got a fantasy team. You want to win your league. Josh Lloyd is probably going to help you win your league because there's nobody better when it comes to fantasy sports, fantasy basketball. So check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball when you're done with this podcast. Wherever you get this one, that's where Locked On Fantasy is, and on YouTube. All right, the Celtics, where it's a nice round number, right? 10 games into the season. You had the first 5 games and the second 5 games. And it's actually broken down pretty nicely here when we look at the defensive numbers. So I've written a big piece on Boston Sports Journal. Please go read that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to Boston Sports Journal to get all of my work. I'm generally putting up, a couple things every day. So first 5 games of the season, Celtics defensive rating is 110.6, 22nd in the league. In the last 5 games of the season, 101.6, that's 7th in the league. They've shaved 9 points per 100 possessions off their defensive, what they allow defensively. So that's a big, big jump right now. So over the course of 5 games, the past 5 games, it's 101.6. In the first 5 games of the season, they were giving up 18.6 points off of turnovers. That has dropped down to 11.4. So 7 points less per game off of turnovers. Second chance points have dropped from 13.6 to 10. Fast break points have dropped from 15 to 8.5. Points in the paint have dropped from 51.6 to 41.6. So 10 fewer points in the paint. The Celtics are basically protecting the paint a lot better. And in talking to Ime Udoka, he's talked a lot about the help defense. And you can see it. The Josh Richardson block is the block I highlighted on my piece, because it shows a lot, because Josh Richardson was one of the guys that really wasn't helping over the course of the first few games of the season. In the second few games of the season, the second 5 games of the season, he's become more involved and has helped a little bit more. Picking it up. These guys are starting to pick it up. And the quote here is from Ime Udoka. I mentioned early in training camp, some things that we were asking them to do were probably not natural for all of them. So we knew it was going to take some time, but you just got to keep working. The lesson is that Ime is still plugging stuff into the game plan. That not the lineups that he's throwing out there, not necessarily the lineups that he wants to. But just like Brad Stevens, experimentation, because you only get a few weeks of training camp, and that's not going to give you all the information that you need. You got to figure out who truly works well together, who can truly grasp the things that Ime is trying to get them to do. Now we're starting to see them get, as Ime says, the rotations behind it have really stepped up, showing the crowd, shifting, keeping guys from the rim, and then everybody covering each other's back. That's the important thing. The Celtics' help defense has just been a lot better over these last 5 games, where the Celtics have really stepped up their defense. The most noticeable thing for the Celtics over the past 5 games is better protection of the rim. Now, opponents have dropped their 3-point percentage by about 8%. That is, I think we could see it in the Miami game, where the first half of the Miami game, the Celtics weren't getting up on shooters, and in the second, when Miami on the catch, they had people in their face. So I think some of that has to do with that. I think the Celtics also caught a little bit of a break that Miami was cold. I didn't see what the Dallas 3-point percentage was, but I think that the Celtics have gotten, a little bit of help. 3-point percentage defense is always kind of a weird thing. The Celtics have always, under Brad Stevens, had a pretty decent opponent 3-point percentage, and it was just always hard to tell exactly why. So maybe they're just getting back to that. Maybe they just, the length of some guys is just bothering people. But regardless, the bigger thing is the way they're protecting the rim and the way they're getting back in transition. They're not giving up. Their fast break points have been cut almost in half. Their points in the paint have been cut by 10. Here's the percentage of shots over the first 4 games of the season. The Celtics gave up 31 or basically 32% or more to New York, Toronto, Houston, Charlotte. It's 39%, 32%, 36%, 34.5%. In the last 4 games, 28%, 24.5%, 17.5%, 21.5%. They're not letting teams get to the rim quite as much. Their highest was 28.1, which is still a few percentage points off their lowest in the first 4, which was about 32, and 10% less than the highest. So, point is, the defense at the rim has stepped up. Why does Toronto now present the biggest challenge here? Well, they're 7th in the NBA in shot attempts within 5 feet. 19% of their offense is in transition. That's their transition field goal percentage is 8th in the league. So they're 7th in the league in attempts at the rim. 19 total percent of their offense comes in transition, and their field goal percentage in transition is 8th in the league. So the Celtics have cut down on all of the things that Toronto is good at. And so that makes me say that Toronto, with its emphasis on running, with its emphasis on pushing the ball and attacking the rim, and its ability to go to attack and go side to side and drive and kick and then attack again, I think that's going to really put a real burden on this Celtics defense. It's a shame that Jaylen's not going to be there to be part of this. It could be interesting to see how can Romeo or Aaron be a real functional part of that kind of defense, because Toronto is going to put a lot of pressure on the team. Can the Celtics take care of the ball well enough where they're not giving up transition opportunities? Without Jaylen being there, there's, you're just increasing the odds that something's going to go wrong. But this is still going to be a huge test. The Raptors play a style that will challenge this defense. So I think Wednesday's game is going to be a fairly decent indicator of how far this defense has come. The Celtics have revenge on their mind, that's for sure. They're not going to sit around and play the way they played the last time. This is exactly the opposite situation, where they're coming off of the 2 overtimes. And you have one day, 2 overtimes in New York, one day off. Here you go, Toronto. This is 3 days off, and you're preparing for a team that, you got booed off the floor that first game. Celtics have not won at home. They got to come out here and smash Toronto. Got to do it. If their defense can hold and limit Toronto and limit what Toronto does well, then Celtics are golden. But if they don't, then I hesitate to even look forward to what they're going to get if they can't shut down the Raptors. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring on Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors, who is always a great conversation. We always have fun doing our podcast together. So Sean and I will talk about more of this and do a full preview of the Celtics-Raptors game. So make sure you're sticking around for that. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. I'd love to have you keep watching the YouTube show, trying to really build that YouTube channel out. It's the big thing. And, even my old ass can be a YouTuber. Why not? So please subscribe. And, of course, please share the podcast and tell your friends, tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.